I think oftentimes when restarts happen, the core cause is actually us not relying on God. It's us losing focus and starting to rely on other things, whether it's our own skills or our own talents or our own comforts, the things that make the world more comfortable or more like our image. And when these restarts happen, I think it's God trying to call us out and say, hey, remember, I called you for something bigger. I called you for something better. I called you to be a blessing to others. And so when these restarts happen, if we want to make the most of them, we got to make God the most by relying on Him. It's an opportunity for us to focus and to kind of refocus on the fact that it's God who is in charge of our lives. It's God who has provided for us the blessings we have now. It's God who has been leading us all this way, and it's God who will continue to lead us. But we have to let Him lead us. And I just wanted to point out one thing about Philip's story here. Right? If we look back at verses 4 and onwards, Philip finds himself in Samaria, and it says in verse 6, the crowds with one accord paid attention to what was being said by Philip. You know, imagine that, the message that Jesus wants to invite these outsiders to know Him and that God loves them, you know, they would have attention to that message. But when they heard Him and they saw the signs He did, they were really focused, right? For unclean spirits, crying out with a loud voice, came out of many who had them, and many who were paralyzed or lame were healed. And as a result, verse 8, there was much joy in that city. And I just want to point this out. How many of the Samaritans gave their life to Jesus? How many of the Samaritans kind of just went like, oh, you know, like, we believe now. We're on your team, Philip. None according to this. And yet there is great joy. And I just want to point this out because I think it's interesting that Philip, in reliance in God, brings this message. And the message itself, even without them accepting it, brings joy. Right? The message in itself brings joy. In his obedience to what God had originally called them to do, as a result, there is joy that meets this city because they are able to start recognizing, start thinking, you know, maybe God hasn't forgotten us after all. Maybe God still loves us after all. And I think that's such an amazing thing because, again, even though this isn't the end of the book of Acts and there's going to be a lot of conflict still, we see here just one short example of how one man can recognize the situation of God restarting. He risks it all. And then he relies on God, and the result is joy for this people, joy for these outsiders, joy for the people who had not known Him.